Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Air podcast show. And today we should be very welcoming JK from Coinbase Ventures, also our investors, to this episode, actually episode 11 right now. So let's get started. And JK, would you mind giving a quick, like self intro to our audience about what you're doing and your background?
Yeah, sure. Nice to meet everyone, and thank you, Chi and Scott, for having me on today. So, yeah, Jonathan King. Everyone calls me JK. I joined the Coinbase Ventures team about 3.5 years ago. I now lead the investments team. Prior to Coinbase Ventures, my background was actually in product and engineering. So I used to work at Microsoft, building out like kind of like APIs for developers. And then prior to that, I was actually in the energy industry. And so that took me to some really crazy places, spent some time on vessels in the middle of the Gulf trying to get, data over satellites back to the shore, but always working around kind of like these new technology paradigms. And so how that all comes together, at Coinbase Ventures, I've had the pleasure to kind of, really focus on a lot of like our kind of deep tech theses, where that I was things around MUV to ZK and things around on-chain privacy, to fast forward back and would say 2024, especially coming into this year, thinking about the intersection of crypto and AI. And so I've had the pleasure to lead all of our investments that are kind of tangential to like the crypto AI sector, and most recently our investment into Kite, which we're very excited about.
That's awesome. Actually, I would love to have you expand the last sentence a bit as an investor. So
Of course you would.
yeah, so would love to learn a bit more about now. Again, now welcome to our cap table, and would love to learn about what's made you guys made the investment about on kites, and what's the thesis behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a couple of things. So we actually published like our flagship theses on crypto and AI last fall, right? Where we kind of talked about this intersection of blockchain and AI. Whereas blockchain, you have the properties around decentralization, verifiability, transparency, and it's permissionless. To AI bringing like kind of data reasoning, advanced automation capabilities, and so the intersection of those two transformative technologies, we believe, can unlock like this new paradigm in terms of how humans as well as machines interact within the digital economy, right? And that kind of leads to this proliferation of agents being significant actors within the economy and driving like significant like economic growth. And so that all falls under a lot of people, we call it now agentic commerce. There's flavors, there's what we call about like the intersection of like stable coins and AI. So if I stick down like that agentic commerce theme, for me, I think that Kite had one of the most comprehensive, well, has one of the most comprehensive like kind of product visions and roadmaps, where it's not just offering, I would say, the native stablecoin rails for agents to transact, but you're thinking about things around, let's say, agent identity. You're thinking about, okay, how do you have programmable governance, and you kind of creating like this programmable trust layer. You combine that with, one, the proof points of demand that you all had at the time. Some of the, I won't disclose them, but some of the partnerships that you're working on that kind of give you a distribution. They're very exciting. I can't wait to see those materialize. And then lastly, most importantly for me as an investor in the stage where Coinbase Ventures invests, is the team, right? Anytime like I've invested into teams within like the crypto AI sector, I actually want to see a co-founding team that have the relevant crypto native as well as AI native expertise. I think that is so necessary to be successful in this place. And your reputations, you all's reputation speaks for itself, right? You built large internet scale companies, and so really excited around the culmination of the product, what you're doing from like a partnership and kind of just general traction execution perspective, and then of course like the team that's behind it, and just being mission oriented, which is something Coinbase Ventures strongly believes in.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for also, like mentioning the the sort of like thinking process about what to invest at the intersection of blockchain and AI. This actually reminded me the first time I was very honestly, I felt like it was inspiring to us about the intersection was when last year around like March. I remember Coinbase published a blog about blockchain for AI. I don't know
Mhm.
actually, like you're part of the the brand behind it, but it's actually mentioned a few things that uh, what blockchain can do for AI. I still remember vividly, like it's break down the thesis into like four
Mhm.
pieces. One about the data and model integrity, and second is about like the right to access management, and also about like, the incentive for and payments for like different AI resources, right? Like data, model, and compute resources. And the fourth one was like about potentially like a AI like model deployment on chain. So and also after that, I remember like a few months later, Brian Armstrong, the Coinbase
Mhm.
CEO start talking about like agent should be the perfect actors to using blockchain cryptocurrency to do payments. And honestly speaking, that was the time that most people are still not talking that deeply about the
Mhm.
intersection. Most people are still talking. I think a lot of people at the time were talking about decentralized compute.
Yep,
A lot of
exactly.
GPU companies, decentralized GPU companies were doing. And then later on, like some decentralized data, like scale AI companies start popping up.
Mhm.
But honestly speaking, like when it comes to talking about agentic economy, when you talk about like using agents to do, like agents should be, like natively using crypto to do payments. Coinbase probably is one of the very early ones to talk about that. That's honestly was the one that inspired us. So I was wondering, like, how did you guys like, at that time already come up with that thesis? Honestly, like, it's very impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a combination of us like kind of just seeing, the crypto AI sector play out in real time. And it was very rapid, right, in terms of like the growth, right? So to your point, I would say late 2023, there was a lot of focus on just like decentralized AI. And so that's like, okay, how do you democratize access to things like, compute, models, data, et cetera? So you had like a lot of the decentralized GPU networks. We had like a decentralized version of Hugging Face and giving access to like a bunch of open source models. And then the data piece becomes very important because I think what's core about, blockchain networks and how it can be applied to AI is this element of user ownership, right? And putting users back at the center of the internet. They own their data and they should be properly incentivized for the use of that data, right? And we know that like all of our data is being used to train a plethora of AI models, right? We're kind of reaching the ceiling in terms of what's available publicly. So how do we get, to take part of that pie in terms of like that private data and aggregating? And so we've made, several investments along those lines. Fast forward to, later half of 2024, we started to see like the first agents come online that were equipped with a wallet, right? A self-custodial wallet, right? So think back to like kind of like the goat agent phenomenon and all of that playing out. And so it was a matter of, okay, we saw like this agent equipped with a self-custody wallet, and that agent could then transact, it could purchase certain cryptocurrencies. And so then it became a matter of like, as Coinbase thinking about all of the infrastructure that we've built over time for developers and, kind of our MPC wallet stack, et cetera, how can we kind of repurpose that for the rise of these agents or for the rise of these agent developers? And so that's how we got things around, kind of agent kit and, kind of being able to give, I guess, like AI agents on-chain superpowers in a sense, and giving them access to wallets, giving them native access to kind of like stablecoin payment rails, and then ultimately that leading to the culmination of x402, which I'm sure that we're going to talk about very extensively, and kind of creating the standard for agents to be able to pay for different services, right? Like using these on-chain rails. So it's a matter of just being very proactive and listening to what we're hearing from the market, and kind of, in a sense, repurposing a lot of the existing infrastructure that we built traditionally for us as human users, thinking about how that scales for this upcoming agent economy.
Yeah, that's that's actually, again, still I have to say, very visionary about what you guys are doing. Like you said, now if we look back, a lot of the products that the Coinbase developer platform CDP have developed and the base has developed is already 1 year ahead of the market, that are trying to connect the dots here. So that was like, honestly, like very, again, like very, very, very good long-term bet. And then goes back to, I'm wondering, like, how about your thesis on agentic identity? Now we talked about like payments, right? Again, everybody's like, there's countless companies, honestly speaking, are talking about agentic payments and agentic payments using stablecoin, right? Like everybody's like, we even got a lot of people ask, oh, what's the differentiation between you guys? And we don't need kites to have agents pay with USDC, USDT, or PYUSD. But like why do you still have to build another tool, another chain for that? So I would love to talk about this and also share some of our thesis. But what
Yeah.
makes you also like really or thinking about identity and governance piece? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great observation. You're right. I think with the rise of agentic commerce and once we started equipping, kind of agents with wallets and of course now they can custody stable coins and begin to transact. You're right. Like that layer of the stack started to become commoditized. And we had the utmost conviction that stable coins is programmable money and it will be the kind of programmable like payment rails for agents, like code stop, right? Period. Like that's it. So when you think about, okay, if stablecoins are going to be used, well, what are all of the other pieces that we need to be able to bolt on to stablecoins being provided to agents as a form of money in order to complete these end-to-end intent-based payment flows, right? And so identity becomes very important because you need to be able to solve for agents, allowing agents to cryptographically prove who they are, right? Who is the agent? Who does the agent belong to? What model are they running, right? Can we verify like where some of like the inputs are coming from? And then most importantly, which actions are they allowed to compete? So when I think about, what prevents AI agents from fully, operating autonomously today, it's one, there's one source of verifiable identity and reputation, which, so happy that Kite is solving for. Yes, you have stable coins as programmable money, but you also need programmable policy layers as well, right? And so these policy layers, in a sense, is kind of telling an agent, okay, what tokens can it hold? What is its budget? How can it spend safely without having, humans every step of the way kind of approving every single transaction, right? Because again, that's just kind of sunk productivity. And then I would say, lastly, where let's say the question might come up, well, why do you need like an L1 to do this, right? And I think like one of the things that you're bringing together is one, you need this kind of common compute base layer, because one of the things I think like agents struggle with is like long-term memory and grounding, right? And it's like, how can the agents like kind of verify their own reasoning? How can we build like durable knowledge, and most importantly, reduce hallucinations for these agents, right? Because if you give one of the agents like a very complex query, it would just sit there, spin and spin. It might answer one part of the query and then say, okay, bro, like that's it. I can't go any further. So, you kind of have to think about like this end-to-end agentic commerce stack, like full stop, right? And so I think like going down like the vertical integration path, where you have like this base layer of compute, you have a developer platform for anyone to access the compute, and then you can just have these modular services that you can bolt on. I think like that to me is going to be the go forward approach as we think about how do you build agentic commerce for the future.
You actually mentioned a very, very good point that we always tell a lot of friends about, like you said, right? Like one agent, honestly, like in order for agent to work, it's required a lot of like different modular services and modular stack for them to be able to finish, especially like the future agent to agent complex task flows with like hundreds of calls or like the agentic interactions in the process, with a lot of, like you said, memory that they need to keep, which honestly speaking, still like developing and one of the bottlenecks in the Web2 AI or Web2 agent infra side is like how do you have agents that can access now unstructured data in real time. That is helping them to make decisions, which then you can talk about, oh, like the data economy, because every single payment is like a lot of people, that actually goes to one of the vision or one of the scenario that x402 that's picture out in the white paper, right? Which is like the paper API, data API that's now can really fractionalize like the data and make data economy become possible. But when we talk about that, we have to tell also some of our partners that hold on, don't get too excited because we have to have the data infrastructure to be ready for them to really be able to read and like pay for those data services. So that's actually very very true. That's one we think in order to have one is to have like the space layer that can coordinate those modular services.
Exactly.
That's agents need is that agent need to like finish the task. And second is one more and also like you talked about the identity and governance, but one more thing that to us we think is quite important that goes back to a lot of times people ask us why specialize the layer one. Is because if you really think about that, at this moment, especially in the experimental or like the early implementation phase, you don't need a dedicated infrastructure. You can just use like Solana or like Sui, like those high throughput, low fee blockchains. If you are not talking about Ethereum, even like some people are still like using Ethereum to make agentic payments using stablecoin, it's okay, but don't think it will be okay if the volume become big, because then you run into a lot of problems that like the network congestion will make the gas fee spike, even like on like those high throughput chain. That's what happen. And also like you're fighting like the network block space with other services or like other like verticals like DeFi, GameFi, and all the stuff. And then with that adding together, that potentially can cause a lot of trouble. That's when the scale of agentic economy start really taking off. But yeah, Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to add some. Sorry, folks, I may be a little bit sick here. So I think there is a functionality perspective and a performance perspective why we actually need a dedicated on layer one. If we're building like a layer two or other solutions, we're basically at the mercy of the underlying, the fundamental layer one in this case, in terms of finality. For example, we cannot faster than finality. If we build on top of Ethereum as L2, we cannot faster the Ethereum's finality, which is anywhere between like a few seconds. But if you want to absolutely for sure, you have this epoch. It's probably like 12 minutes in this case. And then it's basically just depends on finality on that, and also performance and throughput for the this one. And also I think building a dedicated L1 from functionality perspective, building the passport agent ID trackable from the payment to the session to the agent to the user. This is all missing in terms of the underlying infrastructure. So developer can build this on top of Solana, on top of Base, but they will take many months. Actually, one of the most common protocols or use case integrate with us is let agent do token swap in this case. But in order to make sure, let their agent, for example, ChatGPT, to do the token swap or do the trading of the token, they need to make sure give the agent ID, a wallet, and the governance to make sure they don't spend money like crazy. And then once that's given that, the agent can swap money. Just build this ID, passport, governance. I saw repeatably people spend several months in terms, to build API to support this. And then on top of it, they can build their business logic, like agent trading logic. So it's repeatable again and again over 10 different companies from what I saw, and just trying to governance the agent. So that's why, from performance perspective and from functionality perspective, we actually build a blockchain and the infrastructure just for it.
Yeah, and I agree with your point, Scott. Especially like you think about like there's a world, and we really believe that, agents are going to be like, the most dominant actors of like kind of economic growth and activity long term, then that kind of makes me think that there's going to be, billions of these micro transactions orchestrated by agents on, let's say a daily basis. In that case, you kind of need like some type of purpose built, like utility driven infrastructure that optimizes for that level of transactional activity, right? That kind of optimizes everything on down to how block space is orchestrated on the underlying L1, for example, right? How are you going to do things around gas optimization for these agents to still let it be low cost and very effective? And so you kind of like in position like Kite is like almost like this bridge for the agent economy of sorts, right? Because I always believe that agents are going to be agnostic for whatever chain that they're going to transact on to be able to fulfill the end user intent. But to be able to say, okay, as an agent, what infrastructure am I going to choose in order to fulfill this payment, right? What infrastructure am I going to choose to verify that I can transact with this other agent on the counterparty side, right? And then hopefully like you'll start seeing over time like that value going to Kite because of the way that you've kind of constructed this infrastructure to be long-term and be agnostic with a core very, very strong focus on kind of like these agentic commerce use cases.
Exactly. And I feel like from other perspective, I feel like the AI agent developer in this, so no matter it's AI agent developer or AI user, they're actually not your typical crypto user in this case. They actually don't know, most of them, don't know what's even Ethereum in this case. Like they definitely don't want to buy your altcoin to support a gas fee to make a payment. From their perspective, all this is blockchain is just one of many, many other solutions. They may use like even, like a agent payment can even use like credit card or tokenized credit card. They can use a stable coin, but they don't really care like what's the Ethereum gas fee, what's Kite gas fee in this case from certain perspective. So that's why one of the thesis we built from functionality perspective is that we had all this abstract of it. Like user can on-ramp use PayPal PYUSD and off-ramp use PayPal PYUSD or other stable coins without realize there is an underlying gas fee. In this case, like for underlying, we build dedicated, predictable, low stable coin fee in this case. So they will use this full compatible with the rest of the payment, payment infrastructure using the past. Where without realize there is actually underlying there is a blockchain. As long as it works, you don't really need to know you don't just go around and say, hey, I used PG&E, for my electricity and then water, right? So you just to say, hey, it works. It works. It pay very low fees, frictionless to use. I think that's actually important. That's what Kite AI is built for. It's built for a Web2 developer, it's built for AI builder, and it's built for AI user in this case.
Yeah, actually, Scott pointed out a very good thing. This is also one of the discrepancy we like keep running into when we are building at this intersection is like the technology we're using versus like the people we're serving are a lot of times very
Spot
different.
on.
And this actually really reminded me like there's a company that is called ID.me, which right now I think actually a lot of like probably crypto native people don't know them, but they actually are like expanding their business very quickly, especially in US. Like all the like DMV, a lot of like the government identification process are using them. They're actually like underlying using blockchain for like this ID provenance and approve and all the stuff. But they for the people they serve, they actually don't like they don't need to know and understand that actually there's a blockchain technology. They just need to know that this is tamper proof and this can be verifiable. So,
Exactly.
yeah, so this is exactly a lot of times when we are talking to people about what we are building, especially Web2 partners. Right now, it's way better. Honestly speaking, thanks to Circle's IPO, and actually thanks to Coinbase that you guys are part of the supporters to Circle. I think there's a lot of like impression change. around blockchain and a stablecoin at least. So then we don't need to, we don't need to be super careful when we're talking about that. But even like before, if it's before that, it was even like I remember one time we were talking to like the Circle Sean Circle co-founder about like the partnership and all the stuff. But anyway, so like he basically was like like for a while, even as a Circle co-founder, he was super cautious about how, because they are building also like an AI company, and how they deliver the message to the other side of the audience, right? Because a lot of those audience could be very conservative and traditional. So then they're like, we only call what we are using as digital currency, digital money.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, exactly. Right. So you can almost think about it as like the pre Genius Act days to like now post Genius Act, and everyone is thinking about stable coins. I was actually at the AI4 conference back in August, right? So like for the audience, it's like the largest North American like AI conference, mostly like kind of Web2 AI. But I did a panel on like the application of generative AI and agents in the banking and financial services sector, right? And I never thought that I would be the crypto guy in the room talking about AI to a bunch of bankers. But it was such an interesting dialogue because there is just one thing I realize is that one, we're very early on both sides of the aisle, right? On the AI side, in terms of like getting to the point of like kind of real like in production use cases that's driving like actual productivity, and then the same thing of like crypto bringing those primitives over to the AI. But there's a genuine interest, right? And I think like with the introduction of like stable coins, like post Genius Act, there's a genuine interest in stable coins from like the established traditional finance institutions. And I think like we're going to reach a point like in the next 5 years where stable coins are going to be so deeply woven into everyday commerce and payment flows that most people as well as agents won't even realize that we're using them, right? And so I think the teams that will be able to like capitalize on that type of end state are the ones that are building for it now, like a kite in this example, and kind of building towards that future where we have like all of the fundamental kind of infrastructure rails in place to be able on day one, because it's just going to happen. There's going to be a switch, and then we're going to have all of these agent transactions, billions on a daily basis, everyone using stable coins. And so we need to make sure that we have the infrastructure that's ready to serve that emerging economy.
Totally agree. And again, it's like you said, very early moment for both sides. And again, I was very surprised like how open right now, or how at least like the curiosity coming from like the traditional Web2 financial industries, and also like some AI companies about using crypto and the blockchain to solve some AI problems. This actually, again, this was so different. Reminded me how when I was in Web2 AI company, we were building like the automated machine learning platform solution about 5 years ago. That's when I was interacting, and we're, by the way, pure Web2 AI company at that time, that like relatively innocent, right, compared to if you say that you're building at this intersection. It's still, but at the time it was so hard to get those like banks or some of the very conservative financial companies to like move forward. But this time is very different. This time I felt like this, like the stablecoin wave and the agent wave was making those people, honestly speaking, fearful of being left behind. And so that's actually good for companies like us, and even I think obviously for Coinbase, because with that sort of like a sentiment, it can just push the adoption much quicker than like a few years ago. So that was a definitely exciting moment. So actually, Jonathan, we talked about like some of the traditional like the companies. I'm very curious, like how did you? Honestly, this become more like a personal question. I was wondering, like, what makes you move from like the the traditional Web2 space, especially you even like worked in like the oil space before, like to now leading investment at Coinbase. This is honestly is a very big transition. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. I always tell people like working in oil and gas, like I think I became battle tested to working in crypto. It's just as volatile, right? Like, the oil and gas industry goes through its own ups and downs, So yeah, I think I became battle tested. But yeah, I think for me, like my introduction to crypto happened in 2017 because at the time, a lot of people might recall that was like I would say enterprise blockchain days, right? Where everyone was looking at different use cases of, let's say, at the time, like Internet of Things was all of the rage. How can you combine that with blockchain? Of course, you were very limited because like ETH.L1 couldn't support it. Like we have like all the L2s and like kind of high throughput chains that we have today. So that was my introduction to crypto. So crypto to me became more of like the side hobby and passion. As my career progressed on the product side, I later got introduced to doing like some corporate strategy work, was like kind of supporting like some venture firms on, just the technical due diligence perspective. And I just became very energized with just like talking to founders, right? And kind of figuring out like, what will the future look like? And, kind of helping them, craft out like that North Star narrative. And so, decided to make the switch from kind of the product world back into an investor seat. And, had the pleasure of, like I mentioned, joining Coinbase Ventures in the spring of 2022. Coinbase Ventures has been investing into like the crypto economy since 2018. We're fortunate to have just over 500 plus companies in the portfolio. And, we're very eager to support the founders that are spending their nights and weekends building the on-chain economy, right? And want to increase economic freedom in the world. And so that's what kind of drives me the most. It gives me a lot of energy. Yes, I still rely on like these product roots, hence why, and some of the due diligence I did with you, I could go a little bit deeper than maybe others. But no, it's always collaborative. And, I love being in the seat to, just be able to kind of, help founders where we can.
That's awesome. And also this reminded me like your, background also as a product manager actually before that, working Microsoft, because a lot of times, so I remember like during the investment due diligence conversations we have with you, we talked a lot about product itself, which honestly speaking, I would say it's very normal in Web2, but not necessarily like normal in Web3.
Yes, I had to learn that. I was like, wait, what? Why is the conversation going in this direction? But okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a double-edged sword, right? It's a fortunate and unfortunate thing that in Web3 we have another product that need to also be taken care of, like, or grow as well, which sometimes I think also that's why it makes this industry actually fun and also exciting to live with, because the dynamic is very very interesting dynamics. Yeah. So then goes back to actually now finally, sorry, I realized the title today is about x402, or at least we should talk a little bit about x402.
Well, let's do it. I think that we should. So yeah, let's do
it. yeah, let's talk about that. So again, like x402 now, honestly, I would say for at least a few days, even like save the crypto like sentiment about, oh yeah, finally we have another thing that we can talk about, and everybody's like, we'll support that, and a lot of like even exchanges listed like have a x402 vertical that's only talking about the tokens that are relevant to x402. So would you mind share some share some stories behind it? Honestly, like for me, or like for Kite, of course, we integrated x402 very early, and we think it's amazing technology or amazing standard that x402 that has Coinbase has proposed. But again, like honestly, like if you have any like stars behind that? How did you guys come up with this, idea? And honestly, like using HTTP 4.2, which is a very, like it has been there for a long, long time, but somehow then you guys decided like let's just give this a new purpose that's now can finally be used. Would love to know more. This is gonna be
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a really great origin story. Like I mentioned, back in 2024, when we started seeing, the rise of like agents with self-custody wallets and, with all of the momentum that was happening around stablecoins and the Genius Act. So there's a couple of components that came into play. Like one, we fundamentally believe that, stablecoins are becoming, if not they already are, the go-to currency for the agentic commerce, right? The agentic economy, because we think like AI agents need money that works the way that they do, right? Programmable 24/7 and built for the internet. So that's one piece, right? So really focus on the stablecoin piece. The next piece was, like our agent kit, offering through Coinbase developer platform. So equipping agents with wallets, letting them integrate any type of like open standard, agent standard that was out there, and let them be able to kind of freely transact on chain. And then, as we kind of thought about like all of those fundamental pieces coming into play, the next step was like, okay, if we envision a world where, agents are going to freely transact on behalf of users, on behalf of business entities, we need some type of standard that could help agentic commerce scale to a world where we can accommodate, billions upon billions of microtransactions between these agents. And that can be something as simple as, an agent paying for access to an API, right, in order to get the data that it needs to fulfill an end user intent. It could be, an agent paying for, content that might be behind like a certain paywall, for example, right, in order to, get the knowledge that it needs to be able to respond effectively to the end user. And so, agents as software entities, they can't walk into a bank and open up an account and start spending against that account, right? And so that's where like x402 and this whole genesis of like, yeah, we've had like the HTTP standard that has been around for such, a long period of time. How can we repurpose that standard to now allow, these agents to transact over simple API that is headless in nature, and be able to kind of freely transact to pay for any type of content or service. And whether that's an agent, that's a human user, human users can also, kind of consume like the x402 standard as well. And essentially it's all under the ethos of stablecoins, agent kit, x402, giving agents the tools that they need to be able to pay, manage treasuries, and then just transact seamlessly. And then very happy that, like, of course, Kite AI being one of the first to integrate that standard, right? And so now you kind of take x402 as like this payment standard to kind of integrating that with things around, let's say, identity, to programmable trust and policy and governance. I think you just create like a very powerful, kind of base level of infrastructure that's needed to serve the agentic economy long term.
Yeah. I think what amazed me about x402 and then the reuse of HTTP2 402 protocol is that the simpleness is the protocol defect. For example, I think both benefit from the simplicity of the x402 is that the merchant can just return 402 to ask whoever want to make payment, say, hey, I need a payment. It's actually a payment without recognize who is paying them in this case. It's simple because everyone can replace it, and then it's much easier to adopt this 402 standard, like internet standard. It's because it's already a standard designed 30 years ago. But it also curse from it is that it don't mimic a normal interaction in this case. For example, it's like I'm selling to someone and I don't know who they are. Just give me a payment and give selling the product to them. Like it's like you lack of this like a natural human-to-human interaction, or even the agent-to-agent interaction. I think a natural human-to-human or agent-to-agent interaction is that first, for example, I'm selling you some product, Jake, I'm selling a Kite AI to you for you to make an investment. And then you first verify it's Scott, right? It's Scott agent, and then interact with you. That's the ID and authentication part. The second, once you have the ID part, you can look back my past reputation You can track all the transaction in the past, all the interaction with other agent in the past, back to the Genesis block, and then say, hey, this is actually Scott is a reputable person in this case. Most likely he's going to be a really good builder, for example, maybe. And then say, hey, that's a verification, ID, passport, and reputation part. Once you verify that part, you say, hey, I agree to make a transaction with you. I'm going to provide you this investment. And then in this case, you need to sign this, make this investment. So basically it's a payment, and then the proof of the payment in this case. So it's actually several channel, right? It's like auth channel, then it's an agent-to-agent communication channel, which have with each other back and forth discussion, like agree on the details, and at the end of the payment channel, at the end of the you have this a proof of payment or proof of AI. So from payment to session to the user in this case. So and additionally accumulate reputation. So I think the x402 is a start. People realize they need machine-to-machine payment, but in order to make payment really complete, you need passport and reputation. That's the first part. Second part is a settlement for this payment. Most of the existing payment, you don't just directly pay. You actually put into a custody, in this case, or escrow, in this case. Like that's actually the word, like most likely. Even in x402, propose a facilitator in this case. So you put money into facilitator, you ask the service provider or the other party to provide service and verify the facilitator and deliver the payment at the end. The facilitator, from what I see, most of the facilitator today is by third-party services, is centralized API. For example, it's a reputation, it's by guaranteed by this third-party company. But I think the facilitator literally can be anything. It can be a smart contract in this case. It can be decentralized, permissionless, and then verifiable smart contract in this case. So there is tons of like for example, how do you reach a SLA agreement between the buyer and the seller? In this case, you need a facilitator. And previously we don't have a concept for it. I used to call it SLA contract, but I feel like facilitator is a better word. The facilitator can be centralized or can be decentralized.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to say it really shows that we all come from Web 2.
Yes. I'm like facilitator. I'm like, wow, taking me back, Scott.
Exactly. So when we I remember 3 months ago when we told our partners like, oh yeah, we also have the SLA concept about things, and some of them were like, what is SLA? And I was like, what? Yeah, we're used to probably like AWS, Databricks, Microsoft type of like languages.
Yeah, and Scott, I just want to, I want to kind of double click in because you mentioned a couple of things that resonated with me, and as I think about like x402, is like, like the beauty of like something like x402 is that it really flips the model from all of those steps that you outlined that an agent needs to complete, right? Previously, that was very rigid API calls, right? Where now, a developer has to manage like all of these different kind of API endpoints in order to deliver on an end user request. Whereas now x402, because it's headless in nature, it is really allowing like these agents to express intent and then focus on the outcome, right? Not necessarily like how do they get there, right? So now you kind of unlock this entirely new abstraction layer, combining that with, like you mentioned, identity and reputation from Kite, right? So that is where like the programmable trust factor comes in, because at the end of the day, like in order for the agent economy really takes off to take off, it requires end user trust. Users have to be able to trust the system. And the moment that an agent makes a mistake, right, that's where you lose trust, right? And that's where like you can introduce cracks into the system. So having like that programmable trust, I think is like very, very important. Some of the things that, I was thinking about, one of the aspects I'm very excited about Kite is eventually like the Kite agent app store, right? So on one side, you have like the supply of, agents, models, data services that developers can then, kind of provide, and they can monetize that effectively. And then on the other side, you have like this demand layer where it could be agents or humans that want to consume these services, right? So you kind of become like this central core discovery hub. But in order to have like a very effective discovery hub, you need identity and reputation. You need like a kind of a base layer of compute. So again, it all goes back to, thinking about this very pragmatically and kind of building out like this very, really nice, like kind of vertically integrated stack to kind of serve like the agentic commerce sector from a very holistic, point of view, in my opinion.
Yep. And also, honestly speaking, that's why we were so, it was so fun to see that in the x402 white paper that, like you guys talking about mainly like the payment side, but there's a small bucket that is like a small box to say access control to be, and I remember that conversation, that language is like, to be fair, in order for like the agent to be have like the governance, have the authentication, so that the content provider or like the service providers can decide what type of like services or like type of granularity of access control they give. They encourage people adopt to x402 to work with like authentication providers, no matter decentralized or centralized. So I was like, yeah, this white paper is like knowing that this is a part of the puzzle, but in order for like the entire workflow to be complete, that requires some other puzzles to be added together there. So it's honestly like that's why it's when I read that language, I was like, ha ha ha, this is good. they know and they mention it there. So, and also that's also make it so funny to see about like 2 months ago, you guys had that announcement with Cloudflare. And to be very frank, in the beginning, I was like, what? Like it was just a very like a, honestly, people will not expect that Coinbase and the Cloudflare work together. But that moment to me was like, Oracle planned to acquire TikTok. It was like that type of vibe to me. I was like, what? That two companies is a little bit like far away from each other. But if you really like, think about the businesses and the products that Cloudflare provided, it actually makes a lot of sense. And honestly speaking, that's why in the earlier this year when Coinbase was when Cloudflare released the new product to say, oh, now companies who build their agents can register their URL to be whitelisted on Cloudflare, so that the companies that's using Cloudflare to protect the bot management, like traffic and attack, like prevention, can then whitelist their IP, so the agent can be passed through. And then it's actually supposed to be one of the solutions that people felt like finally solve like this, like they're good agents being wrongly flagged as malicious actors, but it's actually creates honestly a lot of questions and the criticisms about, oh, does that mean like now Cloudflare is that center of everything that we like as only like you can whitelist us to do the to be able to use by the or access those services other companies provide. So again, yeah, that's I think that's also why like having our own chain solution or like decentralized solution there can potentially increase like the transparency and trust around like how the agent.
Yeah, and I think so yeah, I was very excited to see like the progress momentum around x402 and specifically like the launch of the x402 Foundation, right? That in partnership collaboration with Cloudflare, and I think like the simple like ethos behind it is like, how do you bring both developers and businesses together to scale x402 as this kind of open, neutral standard for agentic commerce, right? We want to ensure that there's like transparent governance. We want to make sure that there's proper collaboration from all of the different participants across the ecosystem, including the likes of Kite AI. And so I think you'll see like more like momentum around like what we're doing around the x402 foundation, but specifically like we want to make sure like x402, it remains open. It's a neutral standard that anyone can consume for their agentic use cases and begin transacting using kind of the underlying crypto and stablecoin rails.
Yeah, and also along, with other companies who push for standard, like again, like a Google AP2, A2A, all those things, I think is like the set up the foundation for the agentic economy to be like possible. Yeah. So, Scott, any thoughts, or I'll move on to next question.
I feel like I'm
Because
very
sorry, I just want to say, because Scott and I joke about this, like, or surprised about this, like, Coinbase and Cloudflare, partnership for quite some time, because we're like, this is like fantastic that these two companies are working together.
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, so I'm amazed at how fast the world evolved. Like I think prior to 2025, most of people, when we talk about AI, they were talking about GPU, they were talking about training model training, this is fine tuning, reinforced learning. Like even earlier this year, if you go to the GTC conference, majority of part talk about reinforced learning. Even Jensen talk about GPU, more bandwidth, cheaper GPU, etc. But it quickly evolved into AI agent, and then all when we people talk about AI, it's all about AI agent. It's agent for the agent is like a new application in the world. I completely resonate with this. I feel like I sometimes use this example to explain reason with the folks is that like think about what people use, like what user actually demand for AI is that help me delegation, help me do the work, tedious work I don't want to do, help me to do the research I don't want to do. I really don't care what model you're using. I even care less what GPU you are using, what data set you're training on top of this in this case. So it's like I need to go to the airport, San Francisco airport. You ask me what car I'm going to drive you with. You ask me what engine you're going to use. Like the worst case is that you ask me what tire should I use to drive you to the San Francisco airport. I feel like people become more and more resonate into this. The AI agent should focus on functionality, utility, like what problem you are solving in this case. So that's actually a pretty quick shift. From other side, what I saw is that the vision model, the agent, the browser agent is evolving at an incredible speed. Like the mode agent's performance is evolving at incredible speed. Earlier this year, like 2 months ago, it's like forever ago, there was a performance study of the AI agent. Says AI agent performance doubled every 7 to 9 months in terms of recognizing, do the stuff, automate stuff for human. And then they don't see a sign of slowing. And this started since early 2023. And then if performance improve like this, I think in less than 2 cycles, less than 18 months, the AI agent is going to be do things faster and smarter than humans in this case. I don't know if it's going to be faster because I feel like the faster is depends on the throughput of tokens per second, which is probably the most difficult thing to resolve for now. But it's definitely going to be smarter than most of human beings in this case. So that's why I'm always surprised, and also surprised and not surprised by how fast the AI agent was involved. But I feel like we are evolving into the right direction. At the end of the day, it's all about problem you're solving, the automation, and then I'm constantly amazed by how fast the AI is evolving. Yeah.
Me too. And honestly, that reflect to a lot of like those AI investment acquisition as well. That I still remember last year when Amazon acquired Adapt AI around like mid, like June. A lot of people were concerned about agents or agentic era is far away, because Adapt AI is one of the first foundational model companies who focus on agentic capabilities and all the stuff, which they're also led by General Catalyst, which is one of our lead investors for the past few rounds. And at the time, I think people are like, oh, probably it's gonna take another 2 years for people to start really be able to exploring using agents to do stuff. But look at how quickly, starting from earlier this year, since Mana start releasing the capability of general purpose agents to do stuff. It's like at the light of speed that or at the speed of the light that people are going through, and a lot of the now application layer or agentic application layer companies are using agent to do complex, especially around enterprise workflows. So very surprising.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. I mean, every day I read a new kind of headline in the AI world. And I'm just like, my goodness, the space is just moving so fast. But for good reason. I think Scott, your point around, I do believe as human users, we're going to increasingly delegate productivity workflows to agents, right? These agents are going to earn, they're going to negotiate and then transact on our behalf. On the business side, right? I think businesses, businesses in institutions, they evolve into agent networks, right? In turn, where you kind of taking agents and things around sales, logistics, customer support, and that becomes coordinated agent to agent. I think the most important thing, and again, this is where programmable trust and things kind of Kai can come in, is just keeping a human in the loop to set the guardrails. That to me is going to be the most important factor. You need to be able to verify the outputs of these agents. No, there isn't a world where I think AI completely replaces the humans, but I just think that the workload kind of shifts around a bit, right? Where now these agents are just transacting on our behalf, but against predefined guardrails that we can control, that we can kind of orchestrate over time.
Exactly. And also one thing that I always sometimes share with my more a crypto native friends about, right? The agentic infrastructure, or how fast the agents are moving. Jake, you mentioned that now need to have the programmable trust and governance in the process, so that we're not fucked by a human, or not completely having the agent out of control. It's not just a narrative. It's not just a story that we can use and launch a token in crypto. It's happening. It's actually a lot more Web2 companies are jumping to the this development and start pushing, no matter it's the standard again, x402 A2A, or Agentic Payment protocol, but also a lot of startups start using a lot of them are actually not using blockchain technology. They're using alternative solutions, but are solving the same problems. For example, recently, SF-based company KeyCard just raised almost 40 million to just solve the agent identity problem. And the funding team come from Okta, which is the ID or authentication company that's have great background and all that stuff. So again, this thing is really happening because people realize, oh, finally, this agent can really be useful, but damn, we're not ready to use them, even though we can use them. So it's so that's why I think it's make it even more important. I think that more builders or blockchain builders who build up the solution that are user oriented or product oriented, to show that blockchain or stablecoin, for example, is a great solution or one of the best solutions to solve this agentic identity and payment problems. Because again, there's also alternative solutions that pure Web2 teams are using to trying to solve this bottleneck, because it's a real bottleneck and everybody know it's a big TAM. So I think it's the moment that honestly a blockchain industry and the big companies, especially Coinbase type of companies, to help push this forward together, because we have to demonstrate that the blockchain-oriented solutions are one of the best, and they can be useful. I think it's very important because a lot of times this industry, again, because of the token and all the stuff, it's sometimes ignore the product side a bit, and I think this is not the timing for doing this type of approach at this moment with this speed that AI industry are moving. Yeah. Awesome. We are actually till the end of the podcast. Honestly speaking, I think there's too many questions that I still want to ask, but maybe next time, JK.
Next time, my friend. Next time. Scott needs to go take a nap. Like, let this man get off the line so he can go sleep, please.
Yeah, I know. Again, yeah. Sorry, Scott, that we have to pull you up after
no
sleepless 2 days.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation, JK. And I'm really happy for Agentic future. I think we are working towards the inevitable trend, like agent will take care of most of those things for future. For human, I cannot imagine I need to make payment like 3 years from now myself. In this case, I'd probably just give them a command that, buy things for me, like $2, something like that.
Yeah, I agree, Scott. I think like for me, the next 3 to 5 years, I think agents will increasingly manage a lot of financial value, like especially on chain, right? Where we have like these agent portfolio managers that's like transacting on our behalf, like doing all the things in DeFi for the crypto native world. We have agents that become like our, companions in a sense, right? And they are, shopping, buying things for us, being more proactive than we can be ourselves. But, I like the way that this, the direction is headed, and, glad that we're building like the fundamental infrastructure rails today to unlock that future.
Yep. And also looking forward your crypto AI landscape next year, because I think since like last year to this year, that landscape has already like changed a lot and added like a few new,
very outdated.
Yeah.
Yes, She. Thank you for signing me up to do another landscape. So I got you. I got you.
Yeah, honestly, that's just like how I got to know. Like, oh, interesting. Like, honestly, I was very impressed by the landscape and the article. That's how I got to know you from that landscape.
Thank you.
And I was like, oh, JK has industry knowledge here that he can put together. Honestly, the reason I was very impressed again for that one is like we never talked before, and you always put us in the right position with evolvement of our businesses. I was very impressed.
You have really great docs, right? So like, yeah, your docs articulate your positioning. So, hat tip to whoever's your technical documentation writers on the team.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, it's till the end, and thank you so much, JK, for doing that in your early morning. And also thanks for Scott to do that right now after, again, like being very tired. But to the audience, if you are interested and want to follow up on, Coinbase investment thesis, and also JK's, thoughts about crypto, about AI, and about this intersection, please also follow JK on Twitter and also LinkedIn if you have one. But I'll call it a day, and maybe next time we'll find JK for another conversation about some deep dive of the crypto AI landscape.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for having me. See ya.
Thanks,
Thank
JK.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.